From the grind to the glory, one man's journey proves that heart, hustle, and determination change the game. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., where adversity is met head-on and champions are made. Here's George.
Welcome to Catch as Catch Can. I'm George Tinsley Sr., former professional athlete, entrepreneur, author, and your host. This is a space where we sit down with leaders who face real challenges, learned real lessons, and kept moving forward. Joining me today is Alex Hult, a former professional hockey player turned tech entrepreneur. After competing at the highest level of sports, Alex transitioned into the startup world where he now builds AI-powered solutions for the restaurant industry. He's currently developing a table-sized AI ordering device designed to modernize hospitality and improve efficiency and elevate the general guest experience. Here's Alex. Alex, welcome aboard. This is music to my ears. I'm in the restaurant industry, as you may know. And so looking at your background and looking at some of the exciting things that you're doing with AI, et cetera, I'm very, very interested, as I'm sure that our audience will be, to know a lot more about you and what you've done. But let's start off by you just giving us some insight on your athletic career and how you got started with the sport.
Yeah, hockey was my life from a young boy in Sweden growing up, playing hockey day and night. And I was very set from an early age to be the best I could be. And at one point around, 16 through 18, I was ranked number 2 in the country, was drafted by the Sharks, played for the Swedish national team, was the third youngest of all time to play in the Swedish Elite League, and then ultimately got a pretty bad injury for my knee and struggled to kind of come back from it. It was like 3 years of surgeries and recovery and getting back out there, getting hurt again, and it just wasn't really working. So at a pretty young age, I decided to kind of give it up. So I was 25 years old and I decided to start pursuing something else. Got into the restaurant industry, opened my first restaurant in Los Gatos, California in the Bay Area called Hult. So fine dining, farm to table, Scandinavian influence. We had all the Sharks players there. The visiting teams always came by. We served them Swedish meatballs and toastkagen and all the Swedish delicacies. So that was fun times. And then I did that for about 15 years. I still have one restaurant in Las Vegas called Flights in the Planet Hollywood Casino on the Strip. And around the pandemic time, when everything was shut down by the government, I was thinking like what I wanted to do next with my life. I was very frustrated with how many different systems I needed to run my restaurants, and ultimately decided to go for it big and hired a bunch of engineers and partnered with this guy, Zia Hasnan, who's my co-founder. He was the product lead at the mobile division for NVIDIA. So a lot of strong background on building products. And yeah, we went to town. We hired a bunch of people. Right now we have almost 300 engineers working on this. So our big claim to fame is that we're the world's first all-in-one AI platform for restaurants. So imagine you want to open a cafe or a pizza place or a burger joint. We will be your only bill from a tech perspective. So we do the website, the marketing, the payroll, accounting, POS, menu board, like everything you need to run the restaurant completely end to end through one software.
Very, very, very interesting. But let's unpack your whole story there and go back to the beginning and tell me a little bit about your interest in hockey and brothers, friends. What got you into hockey?
My dad played hockey, so it was kind of natural to kind of follow that passion of his. And My brother was playing too. He's younger than me, and he still plays professionally in Germany. But ultimately, yeah, we were just a hockey family, and every day grinding away.
Yeah, early on when you started out, did you have your goals set on becoming a professional, or were you just did it to belong or get through and get a college education? What was your motivation at that time?
Yeah, I was pretty mature as a kid. So I was
Okay.
10, 11 when I really started to focus and put my mind to it. When I was like, I'm going to be a professional hockey player. This is what I'm going to do for a living. And I continued that pursuit pretty hard, pretty much until the injury. That's when I kind of realized pretty fast that, those dreams were slowly slipping away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Given the field that you're in right now, I would think that education is a very key part of understanding all this technology and so forth. In school, were you a student? How did you perform in the classroom?
Yeah, I was. I actually graduated the highest grades of all the male students in my school, and always had a pretty easy time learning and absorbing information.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't want to claim a photographic memory, but have a very easy. It's very easy for me to retain information, I guess.
That's well, I'm sure that's what it takes in this field because I'm quite the opposite. with I'm a hands-on, feely kind of guy. So taking it, going back to your transition from high school, did you play in college there in Sweden or?
It's a little different system in the Swedish school system. We call it university. So I went to university and focused on science and math, and then played hockey. But like, you don't kind of go to school, you belong to a team that's separate
Uh,
from school.
okay.
But the team kind of boards you and helps you get into the school, and like they have special teachers that helps you get through school because you travel so much for the team. So a little bit specialized education, I guess.
Okay, so you had to meet certain requirements to be able to do this, meaning that you had to perform well in the university to be able to play, and if you didn't, were you still able to play? How does that work?
Yeah, there's no real like you have to perform necessarily, because like technically you could drop out of school and still continue playing,
Hmm.
but to be able to stay in school, you had to perform. So the
Okay.
sports team provided resources so that when we traveled, they helped us kind of stay on track, kind of thing, to
Hmm.
avoid people dropping out.
Yeah. So Alex, today, and I'm more familiar with the NBA, being a former professional basketball player. Today, a lot of the top players that are being drafted into the NBA are coming from foreign countries, coming from Europe and Africa and different areas. And I'm assuming, because I don't know the detail, but there's a lot of systems similar to what you just described as to kids starting. I think Luca, as a matter of fact, started playing professional basketball when he was 13, 14 years old. Would that be the same kind of system?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 And so you played for the Swedish team. How did you wind up in the United States?
I bought an apartment in Las Vegas after I decided to kind of drop hockey and do something else. I came here on a tourist visa and was kind of figuring out, what kind of business I could start to get an investor visa. And then I randomly fell in love, to be honest. Miss Nevada, my wife now, her old name was Sarah Chapman. She was Miss Nevada at the time, 2011. And I saw her in my apartment building and I was like, who the hell is that? And then I, basically locked her up and put handcuffs on her and made her mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Whoa,
pretty
whoa,
cool.
whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't really lock her up. It's just that's a slang, right?
Yeah. No, but like we started dating and fell in love, and then pretty much right away we decided to move away from Vegas because the lifestyle there is not conducive for family and kids. So we moved back to where she was from, which is how I ended up here in San Jose, Bay Area.
Okay. So when you're take me through the injury. You hurt your knee severely.
Yeah, MCL, ACL, and meniscus all at once. So it's pretty rough.
Yeah. That hockey is a pretty rough sport. Was it?
Like your knees can get stuck in the ice, right? And then you have like fast moving people coming from every angle, and yeah, that's what happened to me. So it was rough. It was a hard, grind to get back, and the surgeons made some mistakes. I found out later, actually a couple of years ago, I found out. So they had missed repairing some crucial ligament. My ACL was actually never fully repaired. So I, was playing tennis a couple of years ago, and it was like my knee started getting swollen, and I went in to do an MRI, and I talked to the Sharks doctor because we had become friends at the time, and he was like, "Did you know you don't have an ACL?" I was like, "No." It's like, "Yeah, this thing was torn 20 years ago, and that doesn't seem like it was properly repaired." So that was a pretty tough one to kind of find out that, I put all that effort in, and I had so much talent, and then basically never properly got my knee fixed, and I could have probably, recovered and gotten better.
So as you have your injury, and how long of a recovery period or period did you go through there before you said, "That's it, I think I'm going to move on to something else"?
Well, it was pretty intense from 19 to 22, like really trying to fix it, and kept re-hurting it, and had different things, and did a lot of strength training, and it just never really worked. So that's kind of, after about 3 years, that's when I realized like I was probably not going to be in the NHL. I was probably not going to have the future that I had kind of set out. So I still continued to play for a few more years, honestly, more to see the world and travel to figure out what I wanted to do next. And at 25 is when I decided to kind of like, okay, time to move on.
During that period, were you getting paid to play, or were you just playing on like an AAU program? You were getting paid?
Yeah, there's a lot of leagues, once you get to a certain level, like there's a lot of leagues where you can still make a decent living, and it's not super competitive and aggressive. So I played in Russia, in Norway, Poland, Amsterdam, all over the place, kind of like for fun.
Yeah. And during this time, you were meeting a lot of people, individuals, as you were traveling, that kind of developed a network.
Yeah, I would say so. But I think it was really when I came to the Bay Area and opened the restaurant where I really started to build a pretty big network.
Okay. So what made you decide to buy an apartment in Vegas?
I was pretty passionate about Texas Hold'em, playing poker, the World Series of Poker. I had been pursuing that for quite a lot of years as a young kid on the side of hockey. And I just wanted to forget about hockey and go do something different. And I had a lot of fun for a couple of years, and then met Sarah, my wife, and settled down and moved on.
So the photostatic memory, are close to the photostatic memory. Did that help you in the casinos and Texas Hold'em and playing cards?
I think so. I remember people's behaviors, and I had a really easy time for math and figuring out, what the probabilities were without doing the actual calculations. So I think it definitely helped.
That's excellent. That's excellent. As you were talking about it, I was wondering this guy, if that helped you with the card games and so forth. So you decide to buy an apartment, you said there. And when does the restaurant idea come along?
So in 2013, I opened the first one in California after we had moved there. It's called Hult. And then I opened a second concept called Flights, which is the one that's currently open in Planet Hollywood in Vegas. So yeah, Hult was, a standalone restaurant, and Flights was kind of like my brainchild of building a big franchise and growing that, making it a big business. We got to, I think we're somewhere around $50-60 million in revenue since we started. So it's been doing really well, but I knew that I wanted to do something bigger. And I think, with this tech company, I really found this passion of bringing together everything I learned from restaurants, building a solution that actually is going to help restaurants thrive. That's what I'm passionate about right now.
Right. And we're going to get back to that. I just want it could be as our audience listens in and, on our following, we have a lot of ex-athletes, a lot of present athletes, a lot of youngsters out there that are looking to be professional athletes. And one of the things that when I speak to kids and young youth, that, at some particular point, your career comes to an end. And that may be due to an injury. It may be due to a number of different things. Even some of the greatest of Michael Jordan, if he had his ruthers, he'd still be playing. But the age or something catches up with you. You have to walk away from those big contracts or whatever amenities that you have received. But I'm interested in understanding your thought process as you share this with the audience of how the things that you learned and the things that you used to be successful in hockey that you were able to translate into getting into business. So with that being said, you more than most understand that you just don't walk up to a building and you say, I want to put a restaurant here. There's a lot that kind of goes into that to make sure that you are successful. Can you kind of walk us through how you started that transition of building your business plan, your financing, your securing a site, you're developing a menu, any of those things that you think it might be important to our audience?
Well, I think the reason why a lot of athletes are so successful in sports is because they build up this drive and this passion. And when you have those two and you mix in just a little bit of talent, a little bit of luck, a little bit of different things, you get results. So that passion and drive is something that stays with you. And I feel, at least that have served me super well. When a lot of people probably would have quit or said, this is too hard, I'm going to be done, I just kept going. Like quitting wasn't even an option. And I think perseverance, like getting through the tough parts, like the path to success is never a straight line. You always kind of like these days with social media, you just see the goods. Everyone's like celebrating their wins, but like you don't see the dirty work that goes into getting there. So I think it's a big trap, and it's very important for especially teenagers and young adults to understand that like that's not reality. Reality is like the devil's in the details, getting the dirty work done to get to the successes. It's how it's actually done. And I think that really have served me well, bringing that drive with me so that when things got tough, I just made it happen. I just worked harder. I put in more effort. I made it happen many, many times where others might have failed. So, I mean, I didn't know anything. I had to learn the hard way. So the hardest part is to jump in, right? Like once you jump in and you leave shore, and you're going to drown if you don't make it to the other side. Like that's when character is built. That's when you learn. That's when that's how all the ingredients become the cake. So I think for me, I mean, it was terrible. It was awful. I learned on the fly and I made a lot of mistakes. And, if I could do it all again today, it would look very different than the path that I took. But that's the beauty in learning and building something, right?
Yeah. Alex, I worked at my very first restaurant when I opened it. I'd worked for KFC. My first restaurant was a KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'd worked for KFC for 8 years and worked with the Colonel in the training department, which my job, along with the Colonel and some other instructors, were to teach the KFC operations in restaurant concept. And of course, I had to go out and learn myself because I played professional basketball, taught school, etc. But I'd gone through all of this, the training. I'd actually managed 7 restaurants in Atlanta, Georgia, gone back to the corporation, done some things there. But when I opened my first restaurant, 7 days into that restaurant, we were so busy and everything, I actually shut the restaurant down for a day. And you being a restaurateur, having that experience, you can imagine what it takes for you to shut a restaurant down for one day. But we did that to regroup and everybody to get their act together, get our inventory together. So I know exactly what you're saying there. When you actually got started, where did your financing come from?
I had saved some money from hockey and poker. So most of the money came from my own savings. And then I reached out to some of my successful hockey friends and they gave me a little bit of money. And then from there, I started the first one.
Mm-hmm. They gave you or they invested?
Invested.
Okay. And so you had a plan, you formed a corporation and you had a plan to be able to pay them back or have them as part of ownership?
Yeah, part of ownership.
Okay. And how'd that work out?
It worked out good. It was pretty straightforward. They got equity and they bought in and got a piece of the business. And when we made money at the end of the year, they got their percentage and I got mine. And yeah, it was fine for many years.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is because a lot of times you hear of these kinds of situations that don't always work out because they invest and all of a sudden, as they see the numbers, I'm sure you gave them reports, then a lot of experiences, things I've heard where people want their share right away, not understanding that this is an annual situation where you get your return on your investment. So that's great that did work out. So this went on for how long with your first restaurant?
From 2013 to 2023.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So about a decade.
Okay. So over that decade, you built, and how many restaurants did you grow?
I opened 10 of my own, and then we started signing franchises, and then the pandemic hit. We lost all those franchises. They didn't want to open a restaurant in the middle of the pandemic anymore, which is totally understandable. And that's when I pivoted and started All in One, which is, the tech company I'm growing right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's jump to the tech company. Obviously, the experiences that you went through with operating your business and some of the frustrations and so forth led you to developing or getting into the tech end. How did that manage? I mean, how did that unfold? Given you have your point of sale equipment that you were dealing with, and at the time, what made you go to the AI-based systems to take it to the next level?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I guess high level, I felt like restaurant owners that were in my shoes deserved better, where you didn't need 10 different companies, 10 different customer service numbers, 10 different bills to pay, 10 different logins, 10 different data sets to run one basic restaurant. I felt like that was ridiculous. So I guess I saw a pattern or a trend that in other industries, there was a lot of consolidation happening where more of this like platform play was coming out, like both on like the very big level, but also in like specific verticals. Think like, Apple came out with the iPhone, right? So that consolidated phone, camera, video camera, Garmin, map device, and others, right? All into one. So that was a hardware play. But then you look at Amazon, started as just like buying books, and then all of a sudden it's like a marketplace. And then you look at DoorDash, it started with just like delivery, and then now it's like a marketplace. So there's a lot of consolidation happening in other industries. And I felt like for restaurant owners, there was no option out there. And that's what I wanted to build. And then the whole like AI world, that all came from my co-founder, because he came from, from growing and working directly with Jensen from NVIDIA, the king of AI. Mm-hmm. So, I would have conversations, something like, oh, we need, all of the customers that are coming in and making reservations and, opting in, they should automatically go into our marketing engine so that we can promote to them so they can come back again. And then he started talking about agents automating that workflow. And I was like, I'm not sure. What does an agent mean? What does these AI thing really do? I don't really understand. So that's how it started. And then I remember it very clearly, the day where ChatGPT OpenAI was released and I started using it for the first time. It just clicked. So everything that my co-founder had been talking about, what was possible and what could be done, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I get it now. So that's where I felt like, oh shit, this is going to be big. This is going to be real. So now, we are able to decrease the amount of managers you need to run a restaurant because there's so much automation of these boring, redundant tasks. Yeah.
So if to a restaurateur out there, small business, medium business, and some of the larger business, how would you sell your business and what you've developed? You mentioned cutting down on manager workload. You're speaking more from an administrative standpoint. Tell us a little bit about what workload it would take off of the management team.
It's a little bit of everything, to be honest. Things like laying a schedule. If you have a big restaurant staff, that can take several hours to get that right. Well, AI can do it in seconds. Doing an inventory in a restaurant takes hours, and it's this dreadful task everyone hates. All of a sudden, it can be done in minutes. And then creating marketing campaigns take, resources and people sitting for hours creating graphic designs and creating posts on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all these different places, managing different logins. We have all of that automated in one place. So it's hard to describe until you really get your hands on the product. So what I tell restaurant owners, just ask for a demo. The product is so cool that literally everyone that we show it to, whether they are CTO for big companies like Panera Bread and, these bigger chains, or you own a food truck and you're from Mexico and you barely speak English, they all want it. They see that this is simple, this is automated, this will save me a lot of work and effort that I'm doing in 10 different systems in one place for way less of the cost. So it just becomes a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the cost of getting into the program.
Yeah, so we have a pretty aggressive deal right now to grow fast. So we're giving away the hardware, which is pretty expensive. It's a big investment from IO side. So we give them the hardware, we do all the setup, install, we pull all the data from their existing systems, set up their AI native database, and then we train them, we set it up, and there's zero cost to the user. And then instead of paying 10 companies upwards of, say, $2,000-$3,000 a month, they pay us $396. So they save a tremendous amount of money just from a subscription perspective. Then there's savings on needing less labor to do the work. Then there's increase in sales from our automated marketing suite. And then there's efficiencies on decision making and inventory controls and accounting. It's crazy. We literally double the bottom line for many restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of hard to. When you're explaining it, I get it, but as I'm thinking of how that a small business operator would understand that, where I'm sure that you run across a lot of small and medium businesses who don't even do the inventory on a weekly or monthly basis, or don't even do the pricing and a lot of things that you just mentioning that don't do it. I'm sure that they're not not doing it. I'm trying to see how this group of individuals may be able to connect with your systems and understand how this might benefit them at really not much of a cost. Sounds like the hardware is the big thing in getting purchasing the hardware. Is that correct? Or
yeah, we give that to the restaurants. So
okay.
For right now, we provide that at no cost.
Okay. And what's your region or area that you work? Is this all across the U.S. or just in one specific area?
We're located mostly in the Bay Area right now. Most of our customers are here. We have a few restaurant groups in New York. We have one in Boston, some in Las Vegas, down in LA and Southern California. But for the most part, bulk of our customers, because we're here locally, the word is spreading, here in the Bay Area. So that's where we're doing, bulk of our business.
Mm-hmm. I have a young man out in LA. I just visited his restaurant. It's called Fixing. It's a guy that played in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns by the name of Kevin Johnson. He has 5-6 locations, pretty extensive menu, and I would say probably high volume restaurants that this might be something that he would be interested in. Restaurant's called Fixin', and his name is Kevin Johnson. Just in case, I'll make sure that he gets a chance to see this podcast, and some of us may reach out to you.
I'd love to meet with him, and sounds like we could definitely help him save some money for sure.
Mm-hmm. What area, you mentioned reducing some of the management labor. Do you find that people using your systems have less managers, or those managers are able to do more in the restaurant versus the time that they were spending at the desk or, administrative stuff?
A little bit of both. Depends from operator to operator. Some operators are understaffed, right? And their managers are scrambling and the business is running them. So when we go into those restaurants, it's more that we don't really reduce the headcount. We just enable those managers to get back in control. And then in other restaurants that are well operated and have a lot of management and things are running smooth, for them, we typically reduce headcount where, you need less people doing the tasks. So I'll give you one example. In my restaurant in Las Vegas, we used to have 7 salaried employees at one point. It's a big operation, $7 million a year. Vegas is very high volume. So, but yeah, we had 7 salaried employees. Today I have 2.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big difference, like you can enable your managers to do more faster. So they have less of these like tedious, redundant tasks to do.
Mm-hmm. So are there training programs that are built into, not necessarily training programs to understand your system, but training programs to help a manager run or management team run their restaurant through leadership skills, through product preparation, through different areas within the restaurant? Is that part of the package?
Yeah, there's a lot of these like problem solvers, I call them, like prep list. Instead of writing it down on a piece of paper, it's in the product. Instead of them, having handwritten recipes, it's all digital and clean, and they start and finish the prep and you can see who actually made the recipe. Instead of manually placing orders, the system knows what you have on hand and what gets depleted, and you can reorder. So there's a lot of these like, problem solvers that's built in. So it goes from being a problem to now no longer being a problem. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is when you look to work with individuals, are there any particular kind of skill sets that you, or let me back up. Are there any situations that you look at, you say, oh, this doesn't fit our program, or their point of sale system is not compatible with, and I'm trying to get a little bit better feel, or is your system a standalone where you enter the information into your system, or is it connected with the point of sale?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's easy to misunderstand. So in the industry today, the whole setup is basically what's called integrations and APIs. So you have one company that is your POS company, and then one company is your payroll company, one company is your scheduling, one is inventory, one is payroll, one is accounting. We have built all of that into one platform. So we provide the hardware for the POS, the screens for the kitchen, the website, the marketing, the inventory, the accounting, everything. So it's a complete end-to-end restaurant solution.
So in the KFC, we have what's called a merit system in that particular concept, and that system has basically what a lot of what you've mentioned. But are you familiar with merit?
No.
Okay. But so you enter in the inventory and so forth as it comes in. Obviously, it's depleted as it goes out over the counter, but you still have to do your own counts and so forth and measure in your counts versus what the system has depleted or what's been entered and what's been depleted, etc. So it's a little bit of work there in getting that in your system. That you have your own hardware that comes in, which I would term to be a point of sale or a back office system, that the information is entered in one time, or how does that work?
So yeah, we've automated that process. So when the invoice comes in from the vendors, you take a picture of the invoice, and then AI reads what's on that invoice and goes into the system. We already have the recipes in there. We know when you press chicken nuggets on the POS, we know how many ounces of that is going to be leaving the restaurant. And then from there, we get the theoretical inventory. And then there's a mobile app where they can spot check and make sure that, the theoretical inventory matches the actual. And then we have an ordering platform where you can, basically use those AI tools to place the orders. And then new product comes in, and then the loop closes. So it's like that full circle.
Okay. For our audience out there, we're displaying some of what Alex is describing here to actually view. Alex, can you see the display?
Yeah.
You want to identify anything, point out anything particular?
These are the hardware pieces. So in restaurants today, there's a lot of different ways to take orders. Point of sale is the old school terminals, and then you have the mobile POS, the kiosk, which is the self-ordering that you see at McDonald's and Taco Bell, etc. KDS is what the kitchen guys uses to see what to cook, and then online ordering is basically making sure that you own the customer, you place the order, and they come to you instead of sending them to DoorDash and DoorDash taking over the customer ownership. So once they do order from any of these channels, that goes into the what we call the guest book, which is like the CRM. And that CRM, does a bunch of marketing, and then employees track their hours, gets paid. So it's full end to end, everything you need.
Very, very interesting. Okay. So let's flip back a little bit to talk a little bit more about the athlete to the business. If you were advising youngsters out there today, male, female, who are participating in sports and looking at that as a career, which in your case, an injury comes along and you have to fall back on plan B, what would you say to most of our youngsters out there that are pursuing sports, but understanding that sports is going to come to an end and preparing themselves?
I think it comes back to that drive and passion. That's, wherever your passion drives you, like, let it. Because when you have drive and passion, you'll have results. So use that drive and passion that you had for your sport that you loved into whatever makes your engine fire up, whatever you get pumped up and excited about. Use that drive to go get it. Humans are very special creatures. We can accomplish remarkable things if we have the right perseverance and determination and drive.
Mm-hmm. So the toughest challenge that you, and looking back at your life history, and I don't want to leave out your wife, because I'm sure that's a big part of your success. And I got to tell you, I did listen to one of your videos about how you met your wife, and you might highlight on that, not that you put handcuffs on her, but your relationship there, a sense. But what was the biggest challenge that you had in life getting to this particular point?
Well, I think, of course, like from an early perspective, it was the knee injury. That was heartbreaking and challenging. And then when I got into my business career, I mean, it was a lot of challenges. They were not as big, but fires, floodings, theft, lawsuits. I mean, yeah, just a bunch of nonsense all the time. And you just have to not take it personally and put your head down and work hard and work through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And once you were able to get over those obstacles, and you, each one you kind of built going into as you ran into the next challenge.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
As you have faced these different challenges, they prepared you for the next challenge as you come along, as you mentioned, another bump in the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time you get served a lawsuit, it's like terrifying, right? Like it's the worst. You're like, what did I do wrong? I'm a good guy. Like, how did I get sued? I don't understand. This is unfair. Yeah. And then you understand that there's a lot of desperate people. It's kind of a broken system, and you don't take it personal. You just deal with it, and you shake it off. Yeah. And, these things take forever. And even after it's all settled and done, like I remember one time I was sued for $6.5 million. And I was like, okay, that's the end of everything. And then, 3 years later, it was like 100,000. And it wasn't like, yeah, it's crazy how these things work. And until you've gone through it, I don't think anything can prepare you for it.
Yeah. Well, but, hearing someone's story like yours, I was sued 5 times. Once a year for my first 5 years in business. I got sued at least once every year. You name it, I was getting sued for. My $1 million restaurant, KFC, this is now, $1 million restaurant burned down to the ground after the 5 years. And we were one of the leading KFCs in the nation for town size. And out of that, I developed a catering truck, that I called it. And this was back when we heard about Roachmobiles. And so this is 1991. And so I put a warming cabinet register and all that in it at 2 other restaurants, loaded up those other 2 restaurants. I followed the lunch trucks, the business trucks, at their locations. I wrote it down. I took that truck and I beat them to those spots and sold chicken. And when we were going back to the burned down restaurant at the end of the day, and to let people know that we were going to reopen, this was my highest volume restaurant. We when we did reopen, it took me 65 days. When we reopened, we doubled the sales because I was able to look at what opportunities I had from the prior restaurant to be able to make those adjustments while I was burned down, as well as the guerrilla marketing and driving around through my trade area, let people know that I really cared and they got an attachment to it. So to the point you just mentioned, I mean, these things happen. You can't plan for them, but you can't, as you mentioned, you can't let them keep you down. As that's that athletic spirit that we have from playing sports. You learn how to win, you learn when you lose, you say, okay, this is why I lost. This is what I'm going to fix. I'll be ready for the next time. So, yeah,
I'll tell you a funny story to wrap this up, George. My very first day when I opened the Hult restaurant in Los Gatos there in 2013, I had done a lot of the construction myself to save money. It was a lot of work day and night. and we had 40 friends and family coming in for like a soft opening, because I read that that was a good thing to do to get everyone some practice for a couple of weeks. They were supposed to come at 7. At 5 o'clock, there was like 20, 25 people outside the restaurant. And I kind of poked my head out and I was like, can I help you guys with anything? And they're like, oh, we have reservations. And I was like, oh, who did you make reservations with? I was like, Open Table. I was like, Open Table, what's that? And then they said, oh, it's this app. So, being busy, and like I was in the middle of painting the ceiling in the kitchen, this lady came in like maybe 6-7 weeks earlier. And she's like, you got to sign up for this platform to make reservations. And I was like, sure, it seems reasonable priced, and I'll do that. And then I never set it up. I left the iPad in the office, and it was open-ended. So we had 240 reservations the very first night. Wow. We didn't have enough food. We had hundreds of people that literally sat down, started like their dinner experience, and got up and walked out. It was horrible. And then, I was basically on my knees begging the community to give me a second chance. And it was a rough year, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I bet you people noticed that and they appreciate it. They appreciate the ownership connection there, and that you were sincere about giving you a second chance. That means a whole lot.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Alex, I tell you, I really enjoyed this podcast with you. Learned a lot about you, and your success is admirable, and wish you continued success as you move along. And hopefully those out there that are watching this program will have an opportunity to reach out to you and take a look at your program. I know some major corporations that could possibly use your program. So hopefully that people will look at your website here and get a better understanding and reach out to you. So I thank you for your time and coming on with us. Our program is Catch as Catch Can, Turning Obstacles to Opportunities. I have a book on Amazon.com that gives my story, my history of where I came from to where I am today. And it was a bunch of obstacles, Alex, that I had to overcome to make it this particular point. So I thank you for sharing your story. And I'm sorry we didn't get to spend a lot of time with your dating, meeting your wife, calling your mom and talking to her and so forth. I did a little research on that. So that's quite a story. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And let me know if you have any friends in the restaurant industry. I'd love to meet them.
I will. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. The game isn't over. Your success story is just getting started. Head to TinsleySpeaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., a production of Live Stream Editors.